Let's jump right into this explainer. If you're an L&D professional, an instructional designer, or literally anyone tasked with helping people grow, you've probably hit this wall. Why do incredibly smart, capable people sometimes just struggle to retain and apply new information? We put a massive amount of effort into building these training programs, and sometimes the learning just evaporates, poof, gone. Today, we're diving into the research to uncover the missing link to fixing exactly that. And spoiler alert, it all revolves around a concept called metacognition.
So, why does so much workplace training fail to stick? It's the ultimate question, right? The one that keeps us up at night. You design this stunning, highly interactive training module. People take it, they ace the quiz, you check the compliance box, and we're all happy. But then, a week later on the job, total roadblock. They can't apply what they learned to a real-world scenario. It is beyond frustrating to design training that just doesn't translate to on-the-job success. So what's missing here? Picture two learners. The first one says, I studied for 4 hours today. Okay, great. But the second learner says, I studied for 4 hours, but I noticed I couldn't remember key concepts, so I switched from rereading to self-testing. Wow. The difference between these two isn't how smart they are, and it definitely isn't the effort they're putting in. It's their awareness. That second learner actually recognized what wasn't working and pivoted their strategy on the fly. Which brings us to Section 1, Alex's metacognitive journey, from frustration to regulation. Let's see how this looks in the real world.
Okay, meet our protagonist, Alex. Alex is a solid manager who's currently slogging through a mandatory onboarding tutorial for this really complex new software. Now, Alex is a great employee and breezes right through the step-by-step tutorial, clicking exactly where the screen says to click, feeling super confident, right? But then comes the real test. Alex is asked to generate a custom report for their team. Suddenly, crickets. They are completely stuck. The screen doesn't look exactly like the tutorial, and Alex just freezes. And this right here brilliantly illustrates our core problem. On the outside, Alex's external actions looked exactly like successful learning. They memorized the clicks, hit next, finished the module, but internally, their thought process completely lacked the logic behind the actual system. They were literally just going through the motions. What Alex was missing in that moment of learning was what the source material calls a metacognitive pause. They never actually stopped during the training to ask, wait, do I actually understand why I'm clicking this button?
So, Section 2. What is metacognition? The control panel of learning. Let's break down the science of what's actually happening in a learner's head. At its core, metacognition is the process of monitoring, managing, and evaluating cognitive activities. You'll hear it called thinking about thinking, but our sources, like the learning scientists, emphasize that it's actually much more profound than a catchy phrase. It's this extra layer of supervisory thinking. It's what lets you quality control your own reasoning and behavior, and then actively redirect your focus to hit your goals. Honestly, it's like having a master control panel for your brain. To really get this, we've got to look at the rule of two from the Education Endowment Foundation, or the EEF. We have to separate cognition from metacognition. Cognition is the base mental process of learning, like memorizing the clicks, reading a dense paragraph, doing the math. Metacognition, on the other hand, is the management of that learning. It's that little voice in your head asking, wait, why am I clicking here? Did I actually process that paragraph I just read, or did I just look at the words?
But, and this is a massive caveat, you must have cognitive strategies on hand before you can be metacognitive. The EEF research points out that cognitive strategies are the fundamental bread and butter of learning. You still need to know basic memorization techniques or how to navigate a software menu. Metacognition is just what allows the learner to pick the absolute right cognitive tool for the job at the exact right time. You can't regulate a tool you don't even have in your toolbox.
So researchers generally split metacognition into two core parts. Number one is knowledge of cognition. This is just your raw awareness of your own abilities and the strategies you have available. Like knowing, hey, I usually zone out on dense spreadsheets, but I'm fantastic with visual graphs. Number two is regulation of cognition. This is the act of planning, monitoring, and evaluating. And let me tell you, it's this self-regulatory piece that makes metacognition such an absolute game changer in the everyday workplace.
And if you're sitting there wondering, okay, does this actually move the needle? The data is mind-blowing. Research by John Hattie shows that using metacognitive strategies has a 0.60 effect size on achievement. That is a moderate to strong impact. And specific strategies like scaffolding and planning have even stronger effects, sometimes hitting a 0.82 effect size. The numbers don't lie here. Teaching learners how to think about their learning drastically improves their outcomes.
All right, let's move to Section 3, the regulation cycle, putting metacognition into practice. Let's bring Alex back to see how this theoretical framework actually plays out on the job.
The EEF outlines this continuous cycle of self-regulated learning. Now, this isn't a one-and-done checklist. It's a continuous loop made of 3 phases: plan, monitor, and evaluate. When Alex totally blanked on that custom report earlier, it was because they lacked this cycle. Let's rewind and see what happens when Alex consciously uses this loop on their next training challenge.
It kicks off with the plan phase. Before even hitting start on the training module, Alex takes a second for some deliberate self-talk. They ask, okay, what do I already know about this topic, and what is my goal for this training? Just by asking that one thing, Alex is activating their prior knowledge. They're setting a real objective instead of just letting the video wash over them like a zombie. They are literally prepping their brain to hunt for useful information.
Next up is the monitor phase. Mid-task, right in the thick of the training, Alex pauses. Does this make sense, or do I need to slow down and ask for clarification? Remember that metacognitive pause we talked about? This is it in action. Instead of waiting until the very end of a 30-minute module to realize they are hopelessly lost, Alex is constantly checking their own understanding. If something's fuzzy, they rewind or they pull up a quick guide.
Finally, we hit the evaluate phase. The module ends, but Alex doesn't just immediately close the tab and go grab a coffee. They stop and ask, can I explain this concept right now without relying on a cheat sheet? They're assessing if they're actually ready to apply the skill. If the answer is no, they know they need to review. This entire cycle, plan, monitor, evaluate, is exactly how you transform a passive watcher into a highly effective self-regulated learner.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Designing for Metacognition, Practical Tips for L&D Professionals. Let's look at how you can actually bake this into your programs.
Litmos offers some fantastic, highly practical strategies you can run with today. First, model metacognitive thinking aloud. If you're facilitating a session, explicitly narrate your own internal thought process. Say stuff like, when I first saw this problem, I got super stuck here, so my strategy to fix it was, show them what expert reflection sounds like. Second, integrate reflection checkpoints. Build actual hard pauses directly into your e-learning modules. Third, encourage learners to verbalize their strategies. Ask them how they approached a scenario, not just what answer they got. And fourth, give them checklists and job aids to support them once they're back at their desks.
The Litmos research gives us a brilliant framework for this. You can easily turn a one-time training event into a continuous cycle of development just by giving out specific job aids. Before learning, prompt them to ask, what is my goal? During the learning, have them check in, do I need to slow down? And after learning, prompt them with, how will I apply this on the job next week? By embedding these reflection prompts directly into your materials, you hand learners the exact framework they need to independently monitor their own progress.
And that brings us to our final takeaway. As we've seen throughout this explainer, the absolute most effective learners aren't necessarily the ones with the highest raw intelligence. They're the ones who spend the time figuring out what helps them learn best. By shifting our focus from just delivering content to teaching our teams how to learn, we can build a remarkably resilient workforce. So I'm going to leave you with this. If your employees forget the raw facts of your next training module by tomorrow morning, what cognitive tools have you equipped them with to figure it out anyway? Start designing for metacognition today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer.